Ladies and gentlemen, welcome at Science Slam 2025. And first of all, may I have a big round of applause for our pianist. This is Daan. Thank you very much. It was a spontaneous improvisation. We're very grateful. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome on behalf of Studium Generale and the Tilburg PhD platform. At Science Slam, we want to offer you the best of the best from the 5 most bright, innovative and promising researchers at Tilburg University. And they will indulge you in their research, their ideas and their message to society. You will get 5 showcases from 5 schools. Yes, give them a round of applause. Yes. And my name is Richard, and my last name, if you're non-Dutch, it means angel fries. So just call me Richard. I will be your host, your presentator, and after each presentation, which will take about 7 minutes, you also have 7 minutes to ask all your questions. So feel free to ask your questions, but wait with a question until the presenter is finished. So they have their time to do the presentation, and then there's time for your questions. If you raise your hand, I will try to come as quickly as I can with the microphone so we can all hear you. And also, I must warn you, sometimes I even do that without warning you. So I just show up before and I say, oh, do you have a question? If you don't want that, you can simply say, Richard, please move on. That's fine, that's not a problem. And as you might know, we planned to do this session during Night University some months ago in May. But due to protest demonstration, we had to cancel the event and postpone it to today. But therefore, I'm very grateful to see all of you here, also to show our support to the PhD students. And also important to know, at the end, we also have a little vote. So there is always, every year, there's a winner of the Science Slam. And also there's a winner of Science Slam 2025. And I know that there are some people who maybe have their child here, or their roommate, or their friend, or boyfriend, or whatever. But I always ask people, please vote with your scientific heart. So try to listen to all the presentations and in the end, vote with your scientific heart. Who do you think has really lightened up your scientific heart? And that person will win the award and will also win a place in the Tafel van Martinez, which is a talk show in the city center where you can also present yourself. And also welcome. Yeah, feel free. It's great to have you here. And ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I think it is time to start with our first presentation. Can you all please give it up for Yuqi Guo?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay, so hello everyone. My name is Yuqi. I'm a PhD candidate in marketing here at Tilburg University. Because I'm in marketing, I actually made a little merchandise toys for myself. And today, I deliberately made the choice to dress according to this toy. Do we look alike? So in my research, I study emotions and sustainable consumption. So by the end of this talk, I promise that you will be crying and hugging trees. Are you ready for this? Actually, don't worry. So the emotion that we'll be talking about today is not a negative emotion. So this is not about anger or guilt or shame. The emotion we'll be talking about today is something that's much nicer. It's this emotion called warm glow. And you have to summarize it. Warm glow is essentially this good, fuzzy feeling that you typically experience when you're doing something nice for others. So you might experience warm glow when you're donating to charity, or when you're helping a friend move house, or if you're feeling very, very ambitious today, when you're buying a reusable water bottle if you don't already have one. So essentially, warm glow is your brain telling you, wow, I am a really, really good person. And some other researchers, they define warm glow, in my opinion, in a cheesier way. They say warm glow is this good, fuzzy feeling in your chest as if you're glowing up. And I keep thinking about what could be a good metaphor for this emotion. And I think whenever I think about it, there's only one image that keeps coming to my head. And essentially, it is, I want you to imagine that you're in a Christmas market and it's freezing cold outside, your fingers are completely numb. But now, someone handed you a hot mug of glue wine. And maybe, I don't know, hot apple juice if you're the healthier type. And for me, that is instant warm glow. Literally, emotionally, thermally. So here's the thing. This emotional warm glow is actually a strong motivation for people to engage in sustainable consumption. And let's just face it, a lot of sustainable products nowadays in the marketplace, they're not necessarily better for you. They're not tastier, they're not faster, and usually they're also not cheaper. But what they do is that they do make you feel like you're a hero that just saved a bunch of penguins. However, in our research, we find that people actually have the belief that this warm glow feeling will cool off or fade away very quickly. And this is especially true when they're trying to buy something for long-term usage. So what I'm imagining they're thinking in their head is that they're just like, well, maybe when I buy this sustainable product, I will feel good for the first day or the second day, but will I still feel good after 2 weeks? Probably not. And because of that, they will be thinking, well, I guess I'll forget about the penguins, and they will go back to buying whatever that's more convenient or cheaper. So essentially, what people are thinking is that this emotional warm glow is really just like fireworks. They're big, they're bright, they're super exciting, but they're also over in seconds. And what's important is that we find this belief also really matters, because actually it will affect people's decision about sustainable products when they're choosing different products. So for instance, in one of our studies, we showed people 100 different consumer products, ranging from baby clothes and scented candles that people typically do not use for a really long time, to sofa or TV that people typically use for a really long time. And what we find is that the longer people think they'll be using a product, the less likely they are to choose the more sustainable version of this product. All because they thought, well, the warm glow will probably fade away in just a few days, so why do I even bother? But here's a twist. So in another study, we find that people might actually be wrong about this. So in this particular study, we find that a lot of people are still experience a lot of warm glow. They still feel good about their green purchase, even long after the initial purchase. And so essentially for these people, even 6 months later, warm glow is still glowing, and it's going very, very strong. So I think this tells us, and this is also where I'm going to end this talk, warm glow is not necessarily an emotional one-night stand. It can be here to stay if you just let it. Thank you so much.
And please, keep up the mic, because now it's time for you to ask your questions or to give compliments or feedback. Who has a question or simply want to say, did you enjoy the presentation?
Yeah, really nice.
Oh, I see a question. Very good. Over here, yes?
Yes. Have you found any factors that determine whether for someone this feeling stays for longer?
For like the particular type of people that warm glow will stay for longer.
I'm a psychology student.
Right. Yeah, I mean, it depends a little bit on how much you believe in, like whether warm glow will stay, whether you keep considering warm glow. And we don't actually see like any individual difference. But what I'm guessing is that for people who are generally more sustainable, probably they will still feel a lot of warm glow even long after the purchase, right? So they'll be thinking about the sustainable aspect of their consumption. So for people to experience warm glow, it's not really linked to the act of buying sustainable products, but just like thinking about it, right? Like you need to just think about it to actually feel good. So for instance, if you donate something, let's say 6 months ago, but you received an email yesterday and say, oh yeah, just donate it, I think you will still experience warm glow. So it's also about how you actually market the sustainable products, essentially.
Yeah, thank you. That matches my experience. Thank you.
Very good. Any other questions or feedback? Yeah.
I get to speak.
Oh, you speak very loud. Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
How did you operationalize warm glow as different from joy?
From joy. So warm glow typically, there are like different measures. So I'm going to get very technical in it. But warm glow is essentially always very tied to a particular type of purchase or doing good. So if I describe it, it's the good feeling of doing good. So I guess the differentiation from joy is that you can experience joy from many different things. But warm glow typically stems from the act of doing something good. For instance, buy sustainable products, right? So. Yeah.
Very good. And a question over here.
Isn't it a bit strange if you define if you include in the definition of the emotion the cause of the emotion?
That's a good question.
Thank you.
I think the definition of, like, typically how we think about emotions is that there are positive or negative emotions. And like obviously there are many different positive or negative emotions, right? You have the emotion of pride, you have the emotion of, I don't know, like joy, and we just talk about nostalgia. These are all positive emotions, but they are tied to specific causes. So like there are different ways that can trigger this positive feeling, and worm glow is one of them. It's a positive emotion that are triggered by a specific action of doing something good.
I still see a little bit of confusion on your face. I go back with the mic
ahead.
1 second.
Yes.
But if you exclude the cause, what would then be the difference between joy and warm glow?
I mean, so we don't do it in particular in this particular study, but in some other papers, let's say in psychology, they sometimes measure warm glow as this warm feeling in your chest. So they're saying that it's even physiologically different from, let's say, just a simple feeling of joy. But since we have not done it in this particular paper, I cannot say for sure, but it might be one of the reasons like that differs is, physiologically from joy.
Very good. Thanks for the question.
Okay, thanks for the presentation. Yet I have a question with regard to your hypothesis.
Go ahead.
You seem to want to have it both ways. Warm glow can either vanish or stay,
Yeah.
basically. So what's your hypothesis? What is actually what you're researching?
So what we find is that actually people have the belief that worm glow will fade away. So this is what a belief that a lot of consumers commonly hold. And this is also why, especially when it comes to buying long-term usage products, they don't buy the sustainable version because they think the worm glow utility will fade away very quickly. However, we also find that when in actual experience, so not when they're buying a product, but in actual experience, this might be a misprediction because they do experience a prolonged sense of worm glow. So this is like there are two parts of the story in terms of prediction and in terms of experience.
Okay.
Okay, thanks for that. And how far are you in your research?
This paper is under review.
Under review, yeah. Thanks. Oh, questions over here. Very good. Yes.
Is there a difference in the fading away when you're doing good or when you purchase something?
Good
Like
question.
charity, for example.
Yeah.
Or taking care of someone, yeah?
Yeah, my sense, I don't have any data that would tell me about this. My sense that it depends on the nature of the good thing, right? So when you're buying a sustainable product, usually you only experience worm glow when you buy the product. But for example, if you're using the product and you keep looking at the eco label, for instance, and you are always reminded it's sustainable, it matters. And I think was also with caregiving, if you continue to interact with the person that you're providing the care, you might experience more worm glow. But if you're just doing one-time donation, probably not anymore after a while. So,
Satisfied with the answer? Yeah? Question over here, and follow up. Yeah, come back here.
perfect.
Are you, confused, okay. You have a warm glow of the answer now. Okay, that's good.
Yeah, great job. I don't know what else.
Oh, I thought you had a question as well. I thought you were raising your hands. There's a lot of hands. Yeah, very good.
Okay.
Oh, okay. So I wonder. So with you say that the short-term products are prone to be more sustainable, and the long-term products are prone to be less sustainable, right? Or sort of like in that direction, I think.
No, like what I'm saying is that when people are choosing short-term use products,
Yeah.
they're more likely to choose the sustainable version of the products. Let's say if it has an eco label, they're more likely to choose it as compared to if they're buying something for long-term usage. They're less likely to choose the same product with an eco version, let's say.
Because the reason I ask is because I was wondering, I wouldn't classify myself as the most sustainable person. I'll admit that.
Right.
However, with products that I use for a longer term, I feel like I actually can be more sustainable because I might go for a little bit more of an expensive version that I just know is going to last me longer. So like with shoes, I buy the same shoe and I resole it, and I've had the same shoes for like 3 years. I'm probably going to have them for 10 compared to cheaper shoes, you know? So I wonder how you could take that into account, but I don't know if I'm getting very,
Definitely. One of the reviewers mentioned this too. So, so essentially, I think if I understand your question, is that some of the long-term products are inherently already more green, right? Like you're using them for longer compared to disposable product, it's already more sustainable. So we also try to control for this. For example, we also have scenarios where the short-term version of the product is actually more sustainable, but we still observe the same effects. So for instance, we have renting versus buying a product. So when you're renting a product, typically it's more sustainable objectively, but even in this context, people are still more likely to choose the more sustainable version for renting versus buying. So
Very good.
Yeah.
Question over here.
I don't feel a warm glow when I purchase any product. So what's wrong with me?
I have to give some personal advice here.
Oh, interesting. Is it because you're skeptical that they're just not sustainable, or do you just don't care about sustainability?
Do you ever have the feeling of warm glow with other things, like with interacting with people? Or?
So I see purchasing sustainable products as a necessity.
Right.
But I don't feel any warm glow because I'm quite critical on the idea of purchasing any product.
Right, right. I mean, I can totally imagine. And I mean, at the end of the day, I think the most sustainable thing you can do is just to not buy any products, right? But the assumption we have is that if people have to buy products, how can we nudge them towards more sustainable version? And I mean, for you, I share your opinions about, okay, if we have to buy products, it's probably already not as sustainable.
I know one thing, your presentation and your answers give us a great warm glow. Thank you very much. Thank you. And ladies and gentlemen, the next presentation, please give it up for Lisette Sibbald.
So hi, thanks. So my name is Lisette Sibbald. I'm a PhD candidate in methodology statistics. And I will tell you something about my first PhD project, which answers the question whether we can predict postpartum depression before it strikes. So this is more of a negative emotion than the previous presentation, but I hope you can leave the room with some hope. That's a bit of a spoiler maybe to the question, but well. But I'll introduce the topic first. So imagine that you just had your first baby. You were really excited about this baby. You really wanted this child. However, you gave birth, and in the period afterwards you feel more sadness and fatigue, and yeah, not really that pink cloud or roze wolk that you would expect. So what is going on? Well, for some mothers it is the case, and it lasts longer than a few weeks. So not the kraamtranen that we know in Dutch, but longer. I wouldn't know this because I don't have a child. So like a good PhD student, I read books. And I found out that this is actually quite a common problem. So 1 in 10 mothers in the Netherlands suffers from postpartum depression. So it happens way more than I expected it to be when I started this PhD project. Oh, I just kind of lost it there. Yeah, so it's a big problem, and there's symptoms that I just described. But the thing is, it would be great if you could prevent this disease from happening at all. But for that, we need to know what we need to focus on. So we need to know the risk factors, and also we need to know when we can actually predict this. So we know that an intervention actually can prevent this if we are early enough in the pregnancy, but then we need to know who we need to focus on. So that is what we try to do. But how are we going to do this? Since I'm a data scientist by training, I also wanted to have a large data set, and that we found in the Brabant study, which is a large cohort study in the Netherlands. 2,500 mothers from Brabant participated when they weren't mothers yet when they joined the study, but when they were 12 weeks pregnant, they were recruited via midwife practices, and they filled in a lot of questionnaires. They also donated blood samples. And that resulted in over 400 variables that we could use for model training. So we used a few different AI models, from a bit simpler ones to really complex ones. And we just threw in the variables from all the pregnancy stages. So the mothers filled in questionnaires during the first trimester, then the second trimester, then the third trimester. And we wanted to predict the depression score. So they also filled in a questionnaire with 10 items, and that summation of the scores of the questionnaire results in a depression score. and we try to predict that depression score as good as possible with all the variables we have. So, like I said, we have information from the first, second, and third trimester, and that builds up like in clinical practice. So when you come into the doctor office, when the midwife practice, and you have data from the first trimester, and then you come in the second trimester, then the file from the first trimester is not thrown away, it builds up, so you keep adding more information, and this information, yeah, you could use, but we don't know where to focus on. And that's where the AI models also help in. So that's what we did. We predicted the depression score, and that's what we did. So this is basically the results. The models are very good at predicting who doesn't get depressed, so that saves us some money. That's also important this time, because then we know where we need to focus our resources on. But what helps us predict who gets depressed or not? So it's a low BMI or a high BMI. It's both ends of the spectrum, but because our sample is quite highly educated, we have more people with low BMI in there, so that's why we couldn't find a high BMI relationship. Also a tendency towards negative emotions, which is called negative affectivity, and depressive symptoms during pregnancy, which kind of seems like an open door in Dutch, like something that's very obvious. But actually that wasn't really found, at least not at what point during pregnancy you could find that out. Because people don't really, they're like, oh, somewhere during pregnancy were you depressed. And that's kind of fake for people also to answer, so we really wanted to make that into a number. And next to that we have neuroticism, which is a personality trait, and this is also a tendency towards negative emotions, so you experience them more and also more intense. And next to that you're also more anxious. And also a history of mental disorder treatment. So those together make a good prediction of who doesn't get depressed. So the key point is that prevention is possible if we're sure about who we need to focus on. Preferably we would integrate this tool into worldwide clinics, but that's maybe a bit too, it's a bit far-fetched maybe. So I would really advise everyone to watch out for their pregnant friends, because I think that at least one depression scale already, like one questionnaire, that will already help out a lot of people. So yeah, I think it would be nice if we would help mothers and families. And even if you don't care about mothers, you can care about money. It also saves money. So yeah, that is thanks to the mothers from the Brabant study. And thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Lisette.
Yeah.
And also here, time for your questions, your remarks, your feedback. Did you enjoy the presentation? Do you have any?
Yeah, it was a bit chaotic, sorry. It was like this light and...
Yeah, don't worry. It's all fine. It's all fine. I think we got your message.
Okay.
It was a fine presentation. Any feedback? Did you enjoy the presentation? Any questions?
Yeah, it was a very good presentation, thank you. I'm just wondering about the AI models you mentioned.
Yeah.
Can you be a bit more specific about that?
Yeah, so we used more like linear regression models. And now how comes the regularization? Always hard to pronounce. I don't know if you're familiar with the models. Okay, so we tried a few of that, and that's an lasso regularization, an elastic net. We also tried a single decision tree, so that's where you kind of make, if this person is higher, but you made on this, then you go step down, and then if you have a high depression score during pregnancy, then you go down, and then you end up in a box. That's like depressed or not depressed. And then you can also have a version that you throw all these trees and then try different variables and throw them on one big pile and then average them. So the random forest model we also tried. What else did we try? Support vector machine. But the important thing is that we wanted to predict a continuous score, because if you make a clear cutoff, like some so continuous score is meaning that you don't put people in boxes, but say like I predict that this person will score 10 or like 13, because everyone, like every midwife uses their own cutoff score. So we wanted to prevent losing information and also accompanying to different cutoff scores. I don't know if that kind of answers your question.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
What model worked out the best?
Well, actually a simple linear regression with a lasso. Yeah, the good old...
What's the prediction?
Yeah, how good are you at predicting the score?
Well, the thing is, if you're looking at the... so if you wanted like the accuracy measures and stuff, then you need to make a cutoff. But if you make a cutoff of 10 on the scale of 30, then we have like an accuracy of about 90 something. So I should know this. But yeah, that's also because 90% of the people are already not depressed. I think the sensitivity, so the classes correctly identified, is around 20, which is not great. But so that's why I said we're better at predicting who's not depressed, because that is at around 70.
Okay.
So that goes way better, but it's just really hard because there is a smaller group, and if there's less data, there's also less information to learn from. So that's why, yeah, there's still work in progress.
Very good. Thanks a lot. There's a question or feedback over here.
I actually have two questions that are a bit related. You mentioned that your sample was highly educated people mostly. So, and then you also mentioned the BMI.
Yeah.
And the two questions I have, first one is, do you think the highly educated people, like that being your sample, had an effect on the results? And could you elaborate more about the BMI, because I was a bit confused personally, like the role of BMI in the model.
Oh yeah, it's just if you have a lower BMI, so I'll start with that part, then you have a higher depression score in general. But also if you have a higher BMI, you have a higher depression score in general, so it's more like averaged out. It could be that educate, like our sample has an effect, because in general less highly educated people have a higher chance of depression, so that's maybe why we also couldn't predict like the cases very good, because yeah, the prevalence is quite quite low. So I think it's not really has a big effect on the other variables, because those are present. When I read other papers, those are general risk factors. So depression during pregnancy, history of mental disorder treatment are like I know incentive to think that would be different if I had a different sample. It's only that I think it slowed down our model performance. That's a bit what I think.
Satisfied? Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Good. Good. Very good. A question over here. Feedback.
Yeah. What is the insight gained through this study? Because to me, it sounds like you're essentially saying people who tend to be more depressed also tend to be more likely to have postpartum depression. That seems almost trivially obvious.
Yeah, but sadly, that wasn't really that obvious. At least clinicians aren't really aware of that. So yeah, that's all. It feels like a known thing, but it wasn't really a known thing. And that's maybe also because, clinicians don't tend to ask during pregnancy, maybe. It's more like, are you medically well? Then, okay, bye.
Yeah, okay, if clinicians weren't aware of it, then I understand, that makes sense, because this shows them, hey, actually think about it, yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Good, very good. And a question over here. Yep.
We all can see the risk factors, but how would you apply this in real life? What would your advice be to medical practitioners, for example?
Now, I think the most simple thing that you could do is apply that same questionnaire that you use assessing postpartum depression. That's also validated for prenatal depression, so depression during pregnancy. And it's only a 10-item questionnaire. It doesn't take like a long time. I think it's also easy to score. So for starters, suggest to also take this questionnaire and give it to people during pregnancy already.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that's not the case yet?
No.
Okay.
Very good. Any other questions, remarks, or feedback? Yes, this one over here. Very good.
So when you work with these AI models, you can usually use these explainable AI methods that allow you to tell how the model made that decision, right? Mm-hmm. So in your model, how did the model came to its decision? Like, what were the variables that it took into account the most to predict postpartum depression?
The variables, they're listed there actually. So these, the variables over there. So what you get is, with the model that worked best, is that kind of the lasso gives a penalty to, it shrinks. So a model has parameters. So if you 0.5 times your BMI is depression score, it's a really simple formula. But if the predictor is not that strong, it gets kicked out of the model and it gets shrunken to 0. So it's not there anymore, so you really know what's happening. It's not like a deep learning kind of thing where it's like a black box, you throw something in. It's really, yeah, still a simple formula. It's also really computationally easy, so we really follow what's going on. So I like that also about these models. And these predictors were so strong that they survived the penalties. So yeah, I don't know if it answers.
Yeah, and among those predictors, were they equally as predictive, or was one that was like really the one that, yeah, this one is really like a key driver, or, you know?
The first was the depressive symptoms during pregnancy. That was followed by history of mental disorder treatment. I think then followed by neuroticism, negative affectivity, and last one was low BMI. There are more predictors that survived the penalty, but these ones were the most, the strongest ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good. And asking for a friend with this low BMI, is that also applying to men who are moderating and have low BMI?
I actually don't know. Yeah, the thing is that like the fathers are often neglected in this research. And maybe also the depression score that you use for mothers, like the same questionnaire, is not really applicable to men, but that's something that my supervisor is looking into now.
Looking into. I'm looking forward to, for the friends, to the conclusions. Ladies and gentlemen, final round. Any more questions, remarks? Yes, very good. Over here, down.
All right, so I see you've done an impressive chunk of processing the data. I was wondering if you talk about prevention, have you given meaning to that word? Because I can imagine for such an implicit disease that there's a world of difference between suppressing that and resolving or overcoming that.
Like, do you mean if like what I mean with prevention, or how that? Yeah, I'm actually not into the prevention core. Like, those are the very specific people that study interventions, but it is essentially a major depressive disorder. Although mothers tend to also have more anxiety, so it is a bit of a different disease. I'm not really aware of what the specific intervention is, but it does help mothers not reach that stage of a full-blown depressive episode that you need to cure, kind of.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's suppressing. I think, yeah, it helps mothers cope, yeah, with their negative feelings. Yeah.
A final question or remark. Thanks for that, Dan.
Yes. Shall I hold it? No. Oh. Well, firstly, thank you. Being a mother myself, I think it's very good. I never had any questions about mental health while going to the midwife, so very interesting. But I was just looking at the risk factors and talked about it, and I wondered, do you always need to tick like at least 2 or 3 boxes before you fall into the category, or is just one of them already sufficient? Because I was also triggered by the low BMI, and I was like, if you only have that, would you already fall into the risk?
Good question.
Well, not really. In general, it's the depression symptoms during pregnancy is more important, so that gets multiplied more. So the low BMI has a less of an effect. But so I don't think if you have a low BMI, you're automatically. It's also the combination. So the models have like a formula that adds up, and if you have a certain, I think the low BMI is not the most profound one, but it is associated with, so you have higher chance than someone with a regular BMI, but I don't think you need to be worried immediately. I think in general, if you had some mental disorder in the past, you need to be a bit more aware. So my supervisor, for example, she knew that she had, problems with anxiety and depression in her family. So her doctor decided to already, in agreement with her, of course, to start some medication to prevent that. So I think it's really good to be aware of that at least. Yeah.
In the beginning, you said you hoped you would give us hope.
Yeah.
And I know definitely you have done that. So thank you very much, Lisette. Thank you. And our next contestant, ladies and gentlemen, please give it up for Juliana.
I have
You're on mic.
Thank you. Okay, well, hello to everyone. Thank you for being here today in the interest of science. So I am a PhD candidate at the Tilburg Law School, so I'm going to try to walk you through how labor law can also be really interesting. So, are rules and structures of worker representation a Procrustean bed for the current workforce to exercise their collective labor rights? This is the overarching aim of my research, and my idea today is to walk you through it and make you see a bit what I'm researching. But before answering that question, let's go into the question I know most of you must be thinking, and that is, what? what is this procrustean bed and who is exercising what now? Let's break it down. When we talk about structures of worker representation, you can think, for example, of trade unions, works councils, or any organized group of workers that basically seeks to represent their interests and improve their working conditions. And when we talk about the procrustean bed, we make reference to a Greek mythology. To be more specific, the myth of Procrustes. I don't know if anyone is familiar with it, but I will briefly tell you about it. Procrustes was the son of Poseidon, and he became rather famous because when he had visitors over at his house, he would have them sleep in a bed. And if the visitors were too small to fit the bed, he would stretch them out to make them fit the bed. And if they were too long for fitting the bed, as our graph nicely illustrates, he would chop them off to make them fit the bed. Ever since, this term procrustean bed has become rather proverbial to referring to forcing something or someone into a particular scheme or pattern that would otherwise be unnatural to it. So, in very simple terms, what I'm looking into is if the rules that regulate workers' organizing are well suited for our current workforce to exercise collective labor rights, or if they're in urgent need of reconceptualization. So, to understand why this is relevant, let's take a little trip down memory lane to the Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution was a time of great technological development and progress with the invention of the machine and machine manufacturing. However, with this progress also came great precarious conditions for workers. So you can think, for example, of high working times, long working times, and a lot of accidents and deaths in factories because there were no health and safety standards. The widespread use of child labor. This is actually a historical picture. And women being severely underpaid as compared to men. Can you believe that happening? And the pressure of workers to function as well as a machine. So overall, very precarious working conditions. This came and became significantly improved with the emergence of the trade union movement. So basically, workers who were fed up with these conditions decided to organize and say, hey, let's protest, let's ask for better conditions. And this led to significant changes, like the labor law and rights we know and enjoy today, like a minimum wage, maximum working time, health and safety standards at the office, the possibility to, the abolition of child labor, and the possibility to organize yourself as a group of workers or a trade union. To know where these laws came from, because these laws were construed in a very factory setting of the Industrial Revolution, where workers went to the factory every day, had a common and shared workspace, where they engaged with each other, had shared grievances, which basically fostered the possibility to create bonds of solidarity. Now, when we look at our current workforce today, it doesn't necessarily look very similar. There's, of course, jobs that still look this way, but we have the growth of online and crowd work, platform work, highly individualized work such as domestic work, and the growth of remote work that has, after the COVID pandemic, affected most of the jobs, or many jobs, in our current labor market. So what happens is that research shows that these new forms of labor are actually, as our cartoon shows, a very barren environment to foster collective solidarity. It's much harder for workers to organize. So this is not to say that workers are not trying, because here in the sites we can see some examples of these atypical or new forms of labor and how they're trying to organize, how they're trying to get collective agreements or protests to improve their rights. But the reality is research also shows us that these attempts quickly exhaust their fuel. Because when workers try to organize and are in a typical working relationship, they will, for example, not be able to create or join a trade union because they are not meeting the requirements established in the law, or when they protest, they are quickly dismissed, as some of the news here suggest. So, basically, when our worker, our nowadays current worker, tries to exercise the rights that are contained in the law, specifically his collective rights, it's like when you're trying to access your iPhone, face not recognized. He is not recognized and is therefore not able to exercise his rights. So, basically, with this comes the question, are these rules of structures of worker representation a procrustean bed for the current workforce to exercise their collective labor rights, or are they in urgent need of reconceptualization? What do you think? Should we burn the bed? Yeah, that's it.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your presentation, and also here for you, it's time for your feedback, for your questions and remarks. Did you find it interesting? Who wants to have a go first? But let's start with the presentation. Did you enjoy the presentation you just heard?
I enjoyed it. Yeah. Yes.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. Oh, there's questions over here in the front. Very good. Yes.
Yeah, it's a bit related to what you were saying about how work has changed, right? And it's more hybrid, feels more individualized. I'm curious, this is more of a social question than a legal one, I think. But I wonder, because you mentioned it comes from this like factory background, like blue collar work. Do you get the impression that at the time, maybe also your personal identity was maybe more tied to your work, like being proud of this particular aspect of your job, whereas today work is so precarious and we switch jobs more and whatnot, like is it more difficult to tie our personal identity to our work, and that makes it also more difficult to affect collective solidarity, or is that not really a factor?
In fact, that is one of the factors that impacts, because high job turnover is a classical element of these atypical or precarious working arrangements. So we have workers that are constantly changing their job from one place to another. And when, for example, unions try to go and recruit these workers to the union, they find that the workers don't really care about what happens, because they say, well, I'm not going to be here in a year. I'm not even going to be here in the next 2 months. So why would I join a union? Why would I invest my time in this when it's not, as you say, it's not part of their identity? They see it more as something they're doing at the moment for the day-to-day. So that is one of the biggest issues that unions and any form of collective organization has to face when workers are just apathic to it.
Yep. Satisfied with that? Thank you. Question over here.
Thank you for your question.
Thanks for a wonderful presentation. I think it's fabulous research. And I'm very curious whether you work with any alternative designs for representation in this context, and whether you plan to test them in some way.
Thank you very much for your question. Well, actually, I am looking at 4 legal systems. First of all, to understand if the current laws are in fact blocking or obstructing the workers from exercising these rights. So to give you an example, one of the systems where we are looking at has a rule for unionizing specifically for structures of leadership in the union, that 75% of the union organizers need to be, this is in Argentina, of Argentinian nationality. So, for example, in employment arrangements such as platform work, where the biggest part of the workforce is migrant, this is already a big obstruction for them to unionize, because they are not actually nationals. So these are the type of, my hypothesis or the idea of my research is to identify these types of arrangements that could easily be changed to enable it. Of course, then there's other more complex ones that I'm also looking at, like, for example, the fact that it is normally an employee with an employment contract that can join a union. So then you really need to rethink the entire concept of labor law. But I hope this answers your question.
Yeah. Happy with that? Thank you very much. And a question all the way in the back. Yes.
So you have the question for the current workforce to exercise their collective labor rights. How broad or narrow do you define collective labor rights? The entire workforce, or is it like a subset? Or?
Okay, perfect. Thank you for your question. Well, when I refer to collective labor rights, I am looking specifically at the right to collective bargaining, the right to freedom of association, and the right to strike. And the current workforce, so this, in this presentation, I try to expose it in a bit of a broader way to make it, well, appealing. But I am looking at specific workforce. I'm looking at platform work, because for feasibility of my research, I do need to narrow it down. So I am focused on this platform work. But it is not an issue that is exclusive to platform work. Actually, many scholars suggest the platform economy to be a sort of laboratory to the greater trend that is occurring in the labor market, where other forms of labor are also being affected by this. And ideally, the results can somehow also extend beyond the platform economy.
Thank you very much. A final question, all questions being answered. Okay, thank you very much, and also for you. Thanks a lot for your presentation. And the next one, Trinh. Yes. Here we are.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining me tonight. I am Trinh. I am a PhD candidate with University College Tilburg. My research is on how university students change in their intellectual, personal, and civic qualities throughout their university years. But the story I am hoping to bring you is only a small element in my own research. And once again, I ask you to exercise your imagination and imagine yourself at the vet office. You're bringing your pet there, and there is a child unaccompanied by their parent. The parent is perhaps talking to the doctor. Then this child turns over, looks to you, and say, "I'm really scared. Can you tell me a story?" Of course, you as a functional and completely good at heart citizen will feel sorry for the child not knowing what's happening. But being asked to tell a story on the spot, you feel this itch around your neck. And you feel like, hey, wait, maybe I can ask ChatGPT for some assistance because I'm put on the spot. And in a sense, many people can see ChatGPT as a sort of genie granting your wishes. And in the case of 2025, there have been many usages of ChatGPT, 4 of which I would like to tell you about, which is using it for counseling and therapy, or to ask questions about organizing their life. So things like, okay, my guests are coming. How do I clean the house and organize in time? Or you can feel a little bit lost and ask questions about the meaning of life, of your daily routine. And if you are a big fan of science, learning new skills, you might be tempted to ask, okay, I want to know how to read a research article. What are the steps to begin with? My key message of the story today is to convince you of a much older tool that is going to allow you to achieve all these purposes, the overcoming hardship, figuring out how to deal with your current situation, finding meaning, and anticipating the challenges of new future skills and everything like that through the means of storytelling. Because humanity has used storytelling as a medium to overcome challenges and finding meaning in whatever life could throw at you. All the loss, all the joy, welcoming a new family member, a new child, new baby, or losing someone you really love. And there it tells you, through the stories that others can tell you, how to make meaning, how to take steps to learn these new skills of being a mother, being a parent, or just what to do. And if you think about all these stories that have stuck with you throughout the years, you will find that you have this memory and they have guided you through perhaps some tough times, or you just really enjoyed yourself. But the thing that really set storytelling apart from generative AI is that it also helps when you tell the story to the other person rather than only being a listener. Because by rehashing an event in a way and communicating that event in your own words can make you reflect on who you are as a person and how that affects the steps you choose to do or the meaning you find in a particular memory. And then, to bring it further, if you tell stories or you receive stories, it helps you connect the memories from the past to the present, and then to the future to form a very coherent identity that will continue to help you find meaning in your future, and as well as knowing who you are and overcoming your hardship. So this is in the reign of narrative identity, a psychological theory on how people understand who they are and understand life. So to conclude my talk today, I want to bring you back to the story, the Arabian Nights, where there's the princess Scheherazade, and she essentially stayed alive by being able to tell stories, being able to keep telling them, using her own words, making meaning, drawing connections. And I know that especially now, we feel very disempowered with an uncertain future. So please, I implore you, keep your ability to tell stories. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much for your presentation. You can tell your stories over now or with questions, yes?
Are stories good per se, or are there also negative, pessimistic stories, bad stories?
I love that question.
Ooh, that's a good
Stories is my whole thing. And the thing that sets storytelling apart also from ChatGPT or generative AI is that generative AI tends to respond in a way that we want to hear, so that we keep using it and engaging it. But storytelling can also be stories that discomforts you, makes you question your reality, encourage you to find different meaning, different ways of looking at a situation. And in that sense, I find that it's just like art. Art is supposed to discomfort the ones that are already comforted, and also comfort those who have to live in discomfort.
Very nice. Satisfied with that answer?
Doesn't matter to who I'm talking to with my story.
I think it matters so much to who you are as a person, right? We don't choose to use storytelling to everyone. We choose to tell stories to the one that we really want to share an experience, a memory, an event with. It could be telling your child a bad story, and sharing that experience with your child, or choosing a friend to tell a story that really hurts you inside and you have kept inside for forever. So it does matter to you.
Thank you very much. All the way in the back.
Yeah, I wonder why you see telling stories as something that's opposed to using generative AI. The way I've used ChatGPT over this year was, so at the end of last year, I went through a pretty difficult breakup, and my whole internal life story kind of fell apart, right? So what ChatGPT has helped me with is that when I talk to it, it constantly reminds me of my values, what I want to achieve in my life, and it helps me build that internal story by reminding me of what I have already told it, all the experiences I've shared with it, and it also keeps summarizing my life story. If I kind of, if I question myself in certain ways, it will remind me of the good things in my life, that kind of stuff. So I actually see it as a tool to help me build that story. What do you think about that?
I think it's a very valid way to look at this, because then I could kind of place your usage in the category of how to make sense of my own life story, how to rearrange it. So in a way, you're approaching it indeed like a tool. But I think there's also value in telling your stories not only to ChatGPT, but also to other people, people who might respond to you in ways that you can't foresee, or ways that allow you to have a more organic experience. But yeah, you do remind me of a lot of people who felt like they couldn't ask for the time for their stories to be heard. And when I was positioning this presentation, I really was thinking about the use of generative AI in generating cultural stories, in generating fictional work, non-fictional work, and using it in a way that's a bit different from yours.
Thank you very much.
Do you in your research distinguish between different ways to tell stories? So in your presentation, I think you focus most on storytelling around a campfire, human face-to-face interaction, but you can maybe also think about vlogging or writing fan fiction or whatever different ways you can do to tell stories. Do you distinguish between different ways to tell stories?
Okay, so I love fan fiction, but my research is actually, I'm gonna disclose it, that my research is to use student interview data and then analyze the qualitative data in a way to build a quantitative survey on how to measure students' like intellectual, personal, and civil character. So I actually do something completely different, but I choose this story because I love the science behind this. However, I can tell you that the way we choose to get the interview data from students is a form of storytelling that has 3 points. It has the point of asking students, what is a low point in your educational journey? And then what is a high point in your educational journey? And finally, we ask about a turning point. So here we use a sort of narrative structure to our interview to get the data from the students and then making sense of it. I imagine that there are even different ways of telling stories, like presenting a research article, but you can still use storytelling. And it would be so valuable if we can get more and more like human participants to, you know, engage in the act of storytelling so we can explore the questions you ask.
Right. Thank you very much. And do you also, on a personal level, have a favorite storyteller?
A favorite storyteller? Well, she's here tonight right now, my fiance, and she inspired me very much also to tell my own stories.
Thank you very much. Wow. If all the questions are being asked, then thank you very much for your presentation, Trinh. And the last contestant for tonight is Jedidja.
All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for bearing with me and letting me round off the evening for you. My name is Jedidja, and I'm representing the School of Catholic Theology, even though I won't be talking about Catholic theology. I'm very sorry. Instead, I want to take you back to an event that I attended nearly 2 years ago, not unlike this one, about the future of the Dutch labor market. One of the people that was presenting there made this joke. She said, well, I think by 2050, half of us will be at home with a burnout, and the other half will be working as a coach to try to help them deal with that burnout. And I hope she won't be right, because that sounds quite bleak, but it is true that there are a lot of coaches these days, over 100,000 of them, in fact, in the Netherlands, registered with the Chamber of Commerce. And they can help you with seemingly anything, from growing your business to deciding whether you want children or not, tying back to that other presentation. And coaching has long been interesting to me because I think it's a form of care that I think we tend to scoff at a little bit more than other forms of care. I think the thought generally tends to be that, well, if something is really wrong in your life, you go see a psychotherapist, you go see a counselor or a social worker. And coaching is more so for situations where your life is okay or quite average, but it could be great. So there's this discourse of potential. I saw this book at the library that said, well, my life is a 7, but it could be a 10. So this kind of rhetoric is really interesting to me. And so my talk today is concerned not so much with whether coaching works, whether it's good or bad, but more so with what aspects of our modern culture have led to this huge surge in coaching, in life coaching specifically. And I think most online discussions of why coaching is so popular will center around one of two main reasons. The first being a lack of reliance on informal ties. So we see people are turning to ChatGPT. Maybe people don't feel as comfortable as they did in the past talking to friends, relatives. The priest or the pastor is basically out of the question to help you deal with particular problems in your life. So we outsource them to a professional instead. Coaching is the new asking your friends for help, as The Atlantic said. And the other reason tends to be the sense that our culture is so averse to negativity and to unproductivity that if we are in any way prevented from participating successfully in society, that we should immediately take action and throw money at the problem to make it go away. So that happiness and success have essentially become things that you can purchase. This lovely article about getting it together this fall is actually, if you pay attention, sponsored by a life coaching platform. And I think there's truth to both of these aspects, but what I want to highlight in my talk today, at least, is that there is another part of it, which is what I'll be calling the turn inwards. So what does that mean, to turn inwards? Well, to understand that process, I think we need a little bit of history, because of course the kind of discourse of self-improvement, of wanting to work on yourself, is not new at all. Many ancient authors wrote about the importance of self-improvement as part of morality, of how to live a good life. The Meditations by Marcus Aurelius are a very famous example. But I think the first modern self-help book arguably is this one, appropriately titled Self-Help. It's from the late 19th century, and this book is really important, partially because it really embodies this kind of American dream-esque logic of anyone can achieve success if they have the right attitude, placing a lot of responsibility for success with the individual. But also because its author, pictured here, Samuel Smiles, was actually not a very cheerful guy at all. He had pretty unsuccessful careers in medicine, in journalism, and through those experiences, he became really disillusioned with people's capacity, essentially, to change anything in society at large. So he argued very vocally in this book that we should just stick to what we can control and work on improving ourselves instead. And this is kind of an early version of this turning inwards, which was described more recently by Thijs Leister. And their argument is essentially this: the world around us is so full of things that we feel are out of our control, like climate change, like technological disruption, like geopolitical instability. And these things are so complex and so transnational and so fragmented that we can't really even grasp them properly, let alone feel like we have the capacity to contribute to a solution, and it becomes more and more difficult. So authors like Leister, but also sociologists like Anthony Giddens, write about how instead we try to focus on the things that we can control, like our health, our physical and our mental health, our personal goals, even our living spaces. There's a fascinating essay in here about living rooms, for instance, because our inner world is just a lot more within our control than the outer world. So what does that look like in the year of our Lord 2025? Well, maybe we wear a fitness watch. Maybe some of you have one. Some of us will go on a lovely Restoring Your Soul retreat. Maybe our HR department, like this big one at Google, will recommend a mindfulness course that combats work stress. And there's an army of productivity and fitness influencers who promise us that if we follow certain steps, we will be in control and at peace. But I think the danger of this language of wellness is that it is inherently focused on individual empowerment, and it is not meant to address any of the structural problems that make us feel a certain way in the first place. This work-sponsored mindfulness course is not going to address how your department's restructuring now means that the same amount of work has to be done by fewer people. And this lovely influencer quote, "You are in charge of your body," is not really going to be relevant for people who live in a food desert or are maybe working multiple jobs to make rent, essentially. And coaching, I think, is similarly focused on individual empowerment. I'm not saying it's false advertising, because they don't promise you that they will teach you how to change your environment, but it is rather focused on how you can become more resilient by being true to yourself, by returning to your true self, which fits really well into our culture where authenticity is currency, basically. So to sum up, coaching and this discourse of self-improvement is attractive because it is often premised on the idea that what you need to feel better and more in control is not to be found in this chaotic outside world or in other people who are changing forever, but it is rather already inside of you. And what that means is that you can improve, but you can remain a unique individual. You don't need to follow anyone or follow a preset path. You can be comforted without conforming and without compromise. Now, personally, of course, I'm not opposed to the thought that we are all unique. But at the same time, I hope that in our kind of searching for our best selves, we learn to acknowledge a little bit better that we don't exist in isolation, but as part of a system that is always going to be interwoven with things outside of our control. Thank you.
And as they say in the movie The Life of Brian, you are all individuals. So ask your questions.
Yo, thank you so much for talking about this. I find that, yeah, I don't know, it gives me hope that finally I hear someone talk about this subject, because I talked a bit about my background before. I went on the search for meaning this year, and I have really found it again in thinking about the larger issues, not just looking for solutions in myself, but looking where I can affect the structures around me that influence my life, and that has given me so much meaning. And I think, as you said, people don't look towards that enough anymore for solutions. They just try to shape how they perceive their world and make everything fit how they already are. And yeah, I don't even have a question. Just thank you for talking about this.
It's a very nice
I appreciate
compliment.
that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other feedback, questions, remarks, thoughts you have? Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, you have a loud voice. I forgot. Go ahead.
I wanted to ask, what is your hypothesis for your PhD, and how does it relate to this presentation? Because this is amazing. So I want to know what you're actually doing.
It's a great question.
Great presentation, but what are you doing? Yes.
What do I actually do all day? So as I did allude to, I am representing the Faculty of Theology. So in my work, I focus a little bit more on the religion element in all of this. So in my actual work, I focus a little bit more on what also the differences are in different types of coaching. So I look at Christian coaching, for example, on broadly spiritual coaching in kind of alternative healthcare circles, but also on secular coaching, because I'm very interested in how these coaches not only view kind of their own work and how important that is, but also how they view authority. Like I alluded to the fact that this Samuel Smiles guy was like super into the idea that the authority for a successful life is with you. But what happens then if you look at a Christian coach and they say on their website, well, the authority is ultimately with God. So then what happens? Like, what is the role of the coach? So if you're at all familiar with sociology of religion, there's a lot of talk there about religious expertise, like who is basically in control of religious material, of religious stories, of narrative. And in that, I think there's a huge lack of research into coaching from a more sociological point of view. So there's a lot of stuff being done on the efficacy of coaching, on its use in the workplace, what have you. So there's no shortage of literature on coaching as a profession, but there's no one that really centers the coach, and especially not coaching from like a non-secular background. So that's what I'm trying to do in my work.
And your research, does it have like a hypothesis? Like we know from like traditional science, you formulate your hypothesis and then test if it's true or not. Does it work differently with your research?
Well, of course, I have my thoughts. Like what I actually do focus on to get to that point. I focus a little bit on sacralization discourses, making things sacred, which is my favorite topic, but I decided to kind of keep it in the lovely influencer sphere for today. My work day to day is a little bit more focused on this concept of the sacred. So what are the things that become normal? So when I was originally thinking about this project, kind of the hypothesis thoughts that I had about it were more along the lines of, well, I hypothesize that sacralization happens in the discussion of work, for instance. So the assumption is always that oh, you're not working right now, but eventually you will come back. So we're going to do everything we can to make you come back to work. So basically, a lot of my hypotheses kind of relate to that, like where will we see sacralization happen? Because I don't know everything that happens in the coaching industry, and it's also a notoriously unregulated profession, like it is not protected by the law at all. So anyone can call themselves a coach, which is part of the reason why there's so many. But also, like, that makes it difficult to say anything about the whole field. So it's more so like what actually happens in that room and what happens outside of the interaction with their client, because that's what a lot of stuff tends to focus on. I'm also more interested in how the coaches view themselves, how they market themselves, how they are trained especially is also one of the other things I look at, because there are a lot of training institutions in the Netherlands and they're not really studied at all. So these three categories basically I look at.
Thanks a lot also for your question. Any other questions, remarks, things you want to know? Or
isn't coaching also then for a certain social class? Like you have to be able to afford it, and it's like a luxury good, right?
Sure, absolutely. I mean, sometimes you can get it reimbursed through your health insurance, but a lot of the times you can't. So it is something I think about a lot, because one of the guys who's like really infamous in the life coaching world is from the UK, and his, I forget his name, his website like leads with the fact I am the most expensive life coach in the world. I wish I was making this up, but I'm not. He really leads with that. So it can be really pricey, and that is also kind of what I alluded to at the beginning, is that there's a perception of it as more of a luxury good. But then what is interesting to me is that a lot of people will say, well, there's no price that you can put on like authenticity or like living your true self or what have you.
That's,
so it's
that's
kind
good
of
marketing, so to say.
Yeah, basically. So of course, a lot of these discussions are kind of difficult to have with people that are in the middle of it. But it is also what interests me is this move towards professionalization of the field, and then more people start saying, well, actually, you can get it like done through your health insurance and it's fine. So that I wonder if there's also a move to make it appear more accessible. Of course, the field to get into it as a professional is very accessible because anyone can basically start. But then again, there's a lot of pricey trainings you can do if your coaching business, you've started it up and there's no clients. Like, what do you do? Well, what you can do is pay a really expensive trainer to help you teach to get more clients. So it's like also an industry that is notoriously kind of self-consuming because it's like the people get in there and then they have a hard time, so they are coached by other coaches, and it becomes a very weird situation. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for your question. All questions being answered, and maybe on a personal level as well. Do you have like a favorite personal sort of guilty pleasure coach that you think, well, now and then I sneak like Oprah or...
So many.
So many.
I think I named an example I'm affiliated with the Center for Religion in the Public Sphere. And there, when I was presenting my work, I named an example of someone who is a Disney coach. But I don't mean like someone who books your travel for you. I mean someone who you pay an extra fee for to make sure that you have a really memorable experience, specifically at Disneyland. So it's like really, really, and I mean, of course I laugh at it, but at the same time, there's a really interesting book called The Outsourced Self, where they talk about how even organizing children's birthday parties and these really intimate parts of our lives, how we can outsource them now. So this is something I'm always thinking about. Whenever I run into like a kind of weird seeming coaching business, I'm like, clearly there's a demand for it. So it's worth thinking about like what makes it that way. Like, do we feel like we need to have really memorable experiences? Like, is our life ruined if our Disney trip is like, you know, our kid is sick or something? Like, are we equipped to deal with basically imperfect experience? Like, can we deal with unhappiness? Can we deal with negative emotions? So these are the things I would encourage you to think about when you run into like a weird coaching example.
Thanks a lot very much. Jedidja van Boven, thank you very much. And actually, remind that there's a documentary, Langzaam verandert er iets. Do you know that one? There's a documentary on this whole field. It's called Langzaam verandert er iets. You can all see it and you see the whole world. But now, more important, ladies and gentlemen, it is time to vote with our scientific heart. You've all heard these 5 beautiful presentations, and thank you again for your time, and thank you for listening. Would you all, ladies and gentlemen, please pick up your phone, and I'm going to give you some Mentimeter instructions. I think you all know how it works. If you don't know how it works, it's very simple. You pick up your phone, and you either scan the QR code, or you go to this website, menti.com, and you enter this code. And I'll give you a few seconds to do this, and then again, I want to ask you to give 1 vote to the person that has won your scientific heart. And that person will be the winner of Science Slam 2025. And we will see this person back also at the talks at the table of Martinez. Ladies and gentlemen, the winner Science Slam 2025 is Jedidja van Boven. Jedidja, congratulations. And thank you very much. Yeah, well, you speak Dutch. There's one big question we always have to ask the winner. Wat gaat er nu door je heen?
Oh God. Hi, Mom. I'm just really happy that you're all here, that you came out here, and I hope you will encourage these kind of popular science events in the future. So I hope to see you at these things. Thank you so much. And yeah, if you're interested in this kind of coaching business, then just email me and like talk to me about it.
Are you expensive?
No, not at all. No.
Very good.
We can office hours, please.
Very good, very good. Jedidja, congratulations, and also a big round of applause for all the other candidates. Thank you very much. And we also have a small present for all the other contestants. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you for your contribution. Also one for you as well. And ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for coming. Thank you for sharing all your questions, all your stories. Thanks a lot. We hope to see you at one of the other events of Studium Generale. And of course, next year, there's another Night University. There's another Science Slam, and we hope to see you all there. Thank you very much. Have a good evening. Thank you.